It's a beautiful night out tonight. I always feel special when there's that autumn breeze that sort of kicks in. And just finished recording a bunch of stuff. It's the night of the election. It's over with. It's the same minority government. I recorded on the American Zarathustra channel with Donald Kemp. I recorded election analysis, but what I wanted to do, while I still have the energy for it, is I wanted to give a response to my good friend Paultalk. Now, that's a better angle. So Paultalk, he made a video recently about young painters, and he critiqued some of my work. No, I'm just dramatic pausing. It was actually pretty good. I appreciated it. I'm trying to find a good angle. I thought his criticism I thought, like, when he told me about doing a video on my work, I thought, oh man, I'm gonna be shredded, right? I'm done for. No, but it was good. I liked it. I didn't anticipate him being as positive as he was. Okay, so he points to these other, I think, Finnish painters. But let me just focus on the critique he has of my work. So he said that in terms of the landscape, because I originally consider myself a landscape painter. So my use of color, he says, is superb, in that it's beyond even when he was in his late 20s or mid 20s, which I find is, like, an amazing compliment. I think I wanted to get into a little bit of my approach to color, per se. Okay, but let me just address one thing before I get into color. He said that despite all of my, or rather, in spite of my love of high, theory cell academies, that I wasn't seduced by evil painting, as he calls it. And he was comparing me to another painter whose name slips my mind. I'll provide a link in the description. He was comparing me to this other painter who is way beyond my skill level in terms of the portrait, in terms of actually painting a portrait. Saying that he's sort of seduced by the academic-driven contemporary art world, what he considers evil painting. And there's sort of like a coy juxtaposition. There's a lot of innuendos. There's a lot of ironic humor, jokiness, very much like a George Condo painting. But that I managed to sort of stay away from being seduced by what Paultalk considers evil art. And that I don't, what he said, I don't disregard the muse. I pay attention to it. Or I have the ability to pay attention to it, which I think is true. I think that I have the ability to, I hate saying that, like, I have an ability, because that just, to me, it seems like pretentious. Rather, I have the capacity to let certain, let's call them spiritual inclinations, take over what I'm doing. Because the way I approach the painted subject, or the printed subject, I see a dramatic image, and I see something there, and that becomes the basis of something else. And it's like what Adam Lehrer said to me once. He goes, it's very rare that you have a painter that I know exactly what they're trying to say and they do it, right? Which a lot of that comes from me compensating for my own deficiencies in terms of skill in certain places, which I will get at. So he says that I have an ability to listen to the muse, if you will. And he says, but let me elucidate what the approach I have towards color. So consider myself more in line with tonalism instead of like straight up impressionism, because impressionism became bastardized over time by like using straight tube colors and mimicry and so forth. So to me, what I do is I tend to approach things in terms of tones, in terms of always going from cool to warm. A lot of paintings, especially the landscapes, a good 70% of them are cool tones, right? So then I sort of use warms as an irradiating light, if you will. I don't try to... I'm used to editing, if you will, photos. I'm used to editing subjects. I know that certain colors that are very saturated don't appear in nature. But it's a game. It's sort of like a game of chess, if you will, where you have to find colors that are interesting. You have to know that the human eye, or especially the camera lens, does not pick up the differentiated warms and cools and greens and so forth until you're looking for them. And even when you're looking for them, you have to exaggerate to get something interesting. Because certain tones that are interesting, certain colors, they don't appear in nature. So the way I approach it is I always focus on the tone first, and then I focus on saturation. Then I try to avoid muddy colors by doing a lot of glazes after the fact, by I don't really mix a huge amount of time on the palette. I do give it a few twirls and let it go. That's again like the Bob Ross, but I try to do the whole like Richard Schmidt broken color thing. And when it comes to interesting tones, I know that the representation that I'm given from a photograph isn't the true representation of what that thing is in nature. So it is up to you to intuit what you think is there. And sometimes I fudge it, sometimes I don't. But I approach it much in a way a tonalist would, in terms of finding contiguous values. So the lights and the darks are together, but then the midtones are detached throughout. Again, because I like, the pattern work of people like Edgar Payne in his book. So I think another thing that advantages me is that I don't get hung up on the expression of color in painting itself. Because to me, painting, as much as I love those elaborate explanations of the modernists to have pure expression, emotional expressions of color in itself, of light and dark in themselves, I don't view with any sort of particular fetishization one colors over another or so forth. Like, there are great painters, there are great abstract expressionists, like Brian, what's his name? Brian Rutenberg on YouTube, where he talks about, like, the lusciousness of color and how he wants to bathe in it. And he talks about when he was a kid in the Carolinas, going into, like, I think it's sumac, and, really being caught up in color. Like, a lot of these painters, they talk about their obsession with color in itself. Me, I don't have that, because to me, tone is a lot. To me, a good color comes about from snap decisions that you make that feel right in the moment, but at the same time requires planning to get there. When I look at a subject matter, when I'm editing the sort of what I choose to put in a painting or not, I pretty much know right off the bat, like, where it's going to go. And sometimes I'm surprised, and sometimes I have to recalibrate. But that comes from not being particularly attached to certain color choices above others, to certain shades above others, to certain methods of painting above others. So I like to think that I'm not attached, because I love, like, just straight up black and white work, straight up tone, like with printmaking. Like, I don't have a particular attachment to the color block. So I think that's why Paultalk, that was the thing he honed in on the most, was my use of color. Because I don't particularly have a fetishization around it. At least I don't like to think I do. That's why I'm verging more and more into printmaking. So then he says, like, the muse, but his one criticism was that he's like, I aspire to be something more than just a landscape, which I do. I generally consider myself an impressionist, even though the landscape is my roots, right? He's like, well, it's no excuse to not learn how to draw. And that's very true. I don't have a particularly well-rounded grasp of the art of drawing itself. And that's certainly a skill I always try to improve, and I think I've improved over the years or so. But yeah, my draftsmanship could use some improvement. I don't think... So he was very fair in his criticism. Because when I look at some of his drawings and his ability to draw, there's this one panel, I might show it, I might edit this video, where he was showing his drawings, and there was this corner section that he was going to do in a mural, or in a window pane, like above a window, like a vanity, and it was just like a few lines of figures, but you could, like, really see those figures. Like when I try to do that, I sort of jumble it by trying to realistically draw a figure, but really just, like, doing that moment, the, like, instantaneous Picasso thing. Like, man, that's... Say what you want about, like, his art, and certainly there's a lot of criticisms to be made of Paultalk, right? But man, some of his drawings, though. So there are certain gaps in my artistic, pedagogy, or rather my autodidactic artistic, education. So I've ranted long enough, and I just wanted to say thank you to Paultalk, and I just wanted to do, like, a quick video, nothing too elaborate. And so, as always, like, share, subscribe. I might come out with, like, Ko-Fi or something, like a more direct means of donation, but I do have a PayPal link. Once again, God bless, and goodbye.